Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palma. Chris Palma, happy Thanksgiving, my brother.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, and happy Thanksgiving to everybody who is sitting and watching. But what a week of football this was.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it is Thanksgiving week in the NFL. We have a lot of great games ahead of us. Um, but we obviously have to talk about last week. But before we get started, again, we want to wish you and your family a very happy and safe Thanksgiving. So, with that being said, Chris Palma, you ready to recap last week?
Yeah, this last week was a doozy. This was an interesting week.
Let's start with an upset. In the snow in Cleveland, Ohio, Thursday night, the Steelers come to play the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns and Jameis Winston uh, beat the Steelers 24-19 in the snow. What the perfect elements for football.
It was prime football weather. There's something about when the snow falls and the winter hits and you just watch the energy of all these players change. Shout out Jameis Winston for really showing that he's just a football guy and he's a locker room guy. You know, you can tell the Browns gravitate towards him. And hats off Kevin Stefanski. He really knows how to prepare for the AFC North. Um, we did a really good job of beating ourselves. We had 6 penalties in a quarter and a half of football, and then we couldn't really score. You know, Chris Boswell is great. You know, um, we played good. Browns played better. You know, we'll see you again.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny you'll play them in 2 weeks because that's how your schedule
Right.
works out. But yeah, big shout out to Jameis Winston. He's been memed a lot in the last week, which is absolutely hilarious, and I can't get enough of it. But one thing about Jameis Winston that you can't take away is his passion for the game of football. He's just a very passionate individual, and
Dude's high
that's
on
just
life.
yeah, exactly. And I hope that after football he has an illustrious career doing a podcast or whatever, man, because this dude is just he's one of those dudes that you want to hang out with. So big shout out to Jameis Winston. Good win for him and the city of Cleveland. Let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with another upset. The Tennessee Titans beating the Houston Texans 32-27. I mean, CP, we've said it before. Anything can happen in divisional games.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone saw the Texans falling short to the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure everyone looked at this game on the schedule and thought this was a shoo-in, but at the end of the day, you got to remember these are all professionals and they're all getting ready to play. And amongst recent popular opinion, this game is not rigged and anything can happen.
Yeah, the I think what was it Cam Newton said it best. The ball favors no one,
Right.
and
The ball
so
don't lie.
it doesn't play favorites. So a lot of crazy things can happen, but good win for the Titans. Texans. I know we'll probably be talking a little bit more of them later on and why they've kind of fallen off a little bit down the road because they're a team to keep your eye on. But good win for the Titans. Let's move on to another divisional game, this time in the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings taking on the Chicago Bears, and the Vikings winning it in overtime 30-27. This was a very interesting game, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely an interesting game, but again, I'm going to be that thorn on everybody's side and say Caleb Williams is still unimpressive. He could tell he does not have the locker room. His offensive line doesn't pick him up when he's on the ground, but they rush to the wide receivers when they're on the ground. They there's a lot of issues in Chicago right now, even though they just took it to overtime with the Vikings.
Yeah, I agree with you. The one key stat that I do want to mention in Chicago, we looked this up just a couple minutes before the show. Caleb Williams has been sacked. Was it 44 times so far this year?
44 times this season, and that again, all criticism to Caleb Williams that I give, that is absolutely unacceptable. The Bears can't get their offensive line right. There's a lot of issues in Chicago.
Yeah, I would expect a big shakeup in the offseason in the city of Chicago. Let's move on to Washington, where we had one of the most interesting fourth quarters of football I have ever seen. The Dallas Cowboys upsetting the Washington Commanders 34-26, but this was a low-scoring affair in the first three quarters, and then both teams just had absolutely wild plays in the fourth quarter. From an onside, I don't think I've ever seen an onside kick return for a touchdown before. That was the first time I've ever seen that. And man, this was a good win for Dallas. They definitely needed a pick me up, but man, that was just a wild, wild game.
I'll tell you, I'm not a fan of the new onside kick rule. Like the
Mhm.
stipulations for the onside kick is what led to that touchdown happening, and I won't be swayed. The new stipulation, for people who don't know, the new stipulation for the onside kick rule, it can't happen until the last 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, and the team has to know. You have to
Yeah.
notify the other team that you're doing it. So there's no surprise for an onside kick anymore, and that's what led to that happening. You pooch a kick 10 yards and someone knows it, they're going to put their fastest player in for an all-out sprint off a
Mhm.
catch once it drops into their chest. And that's exactly what happened. But before that, the 68-yard touchdown, catching lightning in a bottle, and then pooching a PAT off of a low snap and a bagged hold. You can't write a better ending to a football game. But again, I don't think anyone saw this upset coming.
No, but that's the thing too. Again,
Divisional games.
divisional games, and the ball favors no one. So it's this was an absolutely dramatic game, and I think that that's what Jerry Jones likes. He likes the dramatics, man. So
He likes the headlines.
he likes the headline. He likes the drama, man. And boy, this game was filled with it. Oh man, let's move on to another division game. Let's move to the AFC East with the Patriots and the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins coming away victorious 34-15. Dolphins staying alive in the playoff race. They are in the hunt at 5-6, if I'm not mistaken. So their playoff hopes are still there. But this was a step in the right direction for them.
Yeah, they're sitting right at 8th in the standings. They do still have a pulse, but the AFC is locked. They need to continue to win games, but a good strong
Yeah,
win.
absolutely. I do want to give a shout out to Drake May. Even though the Patriots have not been winning, I think he's been playing very effective football. And I think just watching him develop, I think that he can really be a good starter for the Patriots in the upcoming years under Gerard Mayo. But New England, I mean, hey, you're not going to win games, but look for progression.
Right, those little things that count.
The little things that count, because we saw a lot of good little things in Carolina against the defending Super Bowl champions. The final was Kansas City 30, Carolina 27. But man, the score doesn't really tell the whole story. Carolina, it was a tale of two halves. It was all Chiefs in the first half, but man, Carolina was making that comeback in that second half, and there were a lot of good things. Excuse me, a lot of good things coming out of Bryce Young in particular. And we'll get more into Carolina this episode, but this was a really, really fun game to watch, too.
This was an interesting game, and again, watching these highlights, it's you want to always see who plays to who's competition, right? Panthers played up to their competition. They played and matched Kansas City. They held them to 8 points in the second half.
Yep.
And scored 21 in the second half. When they were outscored, I think it was 20-6
Mm-hmm.
in the first half. So or 20-9 rather in the first half. So that's a huge jump in the right direction for Carolina. There's light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah, and we're gonna get more into them later on. But man, this was if there's ever a good loss, that was a good loss for Carolina.
Yeah.
Let's move on to a bad loss in the MetLife Stadium, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came into town to beat the New York Giants 30-7. It was all Tampa all day, but I think the bigger story was this was the first game after the Giants cut Daniel Jones. Tommy DeVito looked like a backup quarterback, and Tampa is still trying to fight for their spot in the playoffs. They sit at 5-6 at the moment as well. They have a game against Carolina, but after the performance last 2 weeks, it's not going to be a total thrashing like against the Giants. So we hope to see a lot of good things there. But man, what would are the Giants just looking to get Shador Sanders in the draft next year?
That's if Daddy lets him go to New York. But
True.
first game back for Chris Godwin for the Bucks. Got
Mhm.
another one coming up, Carolina. Good strong win for the Bucks. Hope they keep their pulse for the rest of the year. Giants fans, I hate to say it, but y'all earned this one. Y'all earned this one. It is not the quarterback. It is the system. It is the franchise. There's a lot of problems there.
Yeah, there's. I mean, we've dove into the Giants a lot this season. And again, we weren't really. We kind of saw the writing on the wall that this was going to be a very ugly year for New York. Um, but honestly, it's funny because we know a lot of Giants fans, and I've been saying my sympathies. But it's funny, they want to keep losing to keep that first overall pick.
At
So
this
at this
point,
point,
yeah,
they've accepted that this season's gone, and it's just preparing for the next.
right.
So let's move on to Indianapolis, where the Lions came to town to play against the Colts, and it was all Lions all day. 24-6 was the final. Detroit just keeps on rolling, 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 rolling.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a slowed down game. They're coming off of a 50-point game, but they took control and they held control all game. That's what they do. They just take control of games, and
Mm.
there's really not a lot of teams that can stop them.
Yeah. So right now, as it's if the playoffs were to end today, the Lions would be the first seed in the NFC. There's still a lot of season to go, but hey, they have Thanksgiving. They have Thanksgiving coming up, and they got the Bears coming into town on Thanksgiving. So I'm sure they are licking their lips and
They're looking to
chomping at the
break
bit
the
for that
drought.
one. So we'll keep an eye on that. Let's move on to Las Vegas, where the Denver Broncos came into town to beat the Raiders 29-19. Denver, at this point in time, looks to be a playoff team under Sean Payton and Bo Nix. I think right now Bo Nix is in the discussion for Rookie of the Year. You can make a very strong case that he could win Rookie of the Year. I think it'll probably either go to him or Jaden Daniels at this point in time. But man, I think Denver has found their quarterback after all these years.
Denver has finally drafted a franchise guy. I said it going in that Bo Nix can lead a franchise. He's just going to take a little bit of getting used to. And here we are, 12 weeks later. They are a playoff team, and you can tell he fits right in.
Oh yeah, and they. One thing I like about Denver, and I'm sure we'll probably talk about them more as the season goes on, but they're a very balanced team, and I really like that. They play a lot of complementary football, passing the ball, running the ball, and then from offense to defense too. They have one of the best defenses in the league. They have a top 5 defense, and that's a lot of credit to Sean Payton too. So hey, Denver Broncos fans, hey, this is a good sign of things to come.
Mm-hmm. Your future is bright in Denver.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Seattle, where the Cardinals came to play the Seahawks, but Seahawks took the reins of the NFC West with this victory, 16-6. Right now, the Seahawks lead the NFC West at 6-5. This was a very strong division game, division win for the Seahawks, really showing that hey, they really want to make the playoffs, and they really want to under new head coach Mike McDonald. So, Seattle, we got to keep an eye on them the rest of the season.
Yeah. Good little shakeup for that division, man. I'm riding pretty high with Arizona, but at the same time, they are still a very young team, and it would be nice to see a Geno Smith playoff run. It'd be nice to see it before he's out.
Yeah,
I think it would be cool.
hey, anything can happen, man. And we've seen stranger things in the NFL. So,
Right.
oh man, let's move on to Green Bay, where we talked about this game last week. It was the 49ers against the Packers, and it was all Packers all day, 38-10. We're going to talk more about the 49ers this episode, but man, this was Josh Jacobs had a career day, 106 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. Had an absolute monster day on the ground.
Hey man, he fits right in Green Bay. That's what they wanted out of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. They got it out of Josh Jacobs.
I mean, we've talked a lot about Derrick Henry and Saquon being really good fits for their team too. I think Josh Jacobs, again another one of those running backs where he's a great fit in Green Bay, and I think there's times where they can lean on him and not worry that he's going to not do his thing. He's just a
Right.
power running back, and he's just he's gonna get you those hard yards. So this was a good win for Green Bay, and we're gonna talk more about the 49ers a little bit. But 49ers, you're staying alive at the moment, but we'll see after this week.
Right. This is going to be a hard week for you guys.
Yeah. 49ers play the Bills this upcoming Sunday night. But let's move on to last week's Sunday night primetime game, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Los Angeles Rams. It was all Eagles the whole day. Saquon Barkley had a career day for rushing 255 yards. Absolute ridiculous. Philly won 37-20. Whew, man, 7-game winning streak.
7-game win streak for them, and Saquon Barkley on pace to break the single season rush record. Let's talk about that one for a second. He is on pace to have 2,051 yards this year. He is playing out of his mind, and he looks unbelievably good in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. He runs like an old school Philadelphia Eagle running back.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, I remember watching Brian Westbrook run. He reminds me of that Eagles offense.
Mm-hmm. To me, he reminds me of LaShawn McCoy a
Right,
lot.
another
in
one.
This one. And personally, I was never really too big of a fan of Saquon's, I guess, running style in New York because it was a lot of 1 yard gain, 1 yard gain, 1 yard gain, and then he'd bust out for an 80-yard run. And the stat sheet would look like it's like 100 yards and like 2 rushing touchdowns, but it's like he just had one big run. And then here, this not the case this year with Philly. Philly is really creating a lot of space for him, and I think that really stems from they've been having good offensive line help and presence. I want to give a quick shout out to Cam Jurgens, the center of the Eagles.
The replacement.
He had big shoes to fill under Jason Kelsey, and although he's not Jason Kelsey, he's still one of the best centers in the league. And so the Eagles offense has not really skipped a beat, losing Jason Kelsey, which has been a great benefit to them. Cam Jurgens, we see you. You keep doing your thing, man.
Yeah, it's also good to see that the man that Jason Kelsey gave the nod of appreciation, saying that when I'm gone, this offensive line's in good hands, is living up to that potential that he is leaving this offensive line. He's leading them.
And Saquon's success is indicative of that. Because when he said, "Oh, we broke this single game rushing record," he said, "We broke it, not I broke it. We broke it." Mm-hmm. Because it's a full team effort.
That's right.
So good on the Eagles. Good on Saquon. Philly, strong contenders this year. And lastly, the final game this past week, the Ravens coming to town to play the Los Angeles Chargers. The Harbaugh, again, this was the third time that the brothers have met and played against each other. But this was also the third win for John Harbaugh against Jim Harbaugh. So Ravens won 30-23. Lamar doing his thing, of course, and Derrick Henry doing his thing, of course. I will say it's funny because I'm like just give Derrick Henry the ball. And when in the first quarter, when we could not really run, we weren't giving him the ball that much. It wasn't until the second quarter where it's like, okay, we keep consistently giving him those touches that good things happen. So the Ravens offense could simply put, like, give Derrick Henry the ball, good things happen.
Well, yeah, there's a simple formula there. You give a 240-pound man the football and the rights to run into someone's chest. Sooner or later, the guy being ran into is going to start to become hurt, and he's not going to want it anymore. Now, you put in the motor that is Derrick Henry, that is that 240-pound man, it ain't going to stop.
Mm-hmm. And no, it was this was a very entertaining game to say the least. CP, did you see the double stiff arm Derrick Henry did
Double
on the
stiff
same?
arm? No.
So he he stiff armed two guys on the same play on a fourth down, and he
Oh
just
my
said, "Get
god.
off me, and get off me! I'm getting this first down."
That is wild. That is absolutely wild. I didn't see that.
Oh man, it was a great highlight. I highly recommend it. But there you have it, folks. That is our Week 12 recap this past week. A lot of great games, a lot of great divisional games. Uh, so it really kind of sets the stage for the playoffs this upcoming week. So let's move on to the first game that we wanted to talk about. So we're not going to talk Thanksgiving games just because we figured, everyone's going to be doing Thanksgiving, right? Let's talk some games on Sunday. So if you're watching this, we're talking for some games on Sunday. We hope that the Thanksgiving games are very fun and entertaining, and we'll give you our picks on them in the timestamp below. But for now, let's talk Buccaneers and Panthers. Um, and I know what everyone's thinking is like, why are you guys talking this game? No. There's a lot to open for this one. But I'll pass the torch to CP because you were the one that actually wanted to talk about this one. So I'll give you the reins, my friend.
Yeah, no, I wanted to talk this game for a plethora of reasons for both sides. And now let's start with Tampa. Like you said, playoffs are starting to shape up as we kind of see the bracket forming. Everyone's in must-win mode. We were talking about this off air. 7 losses is hard to make a playoff run on any given year.
Mm-hmm.
This year is probably one of the hardest years to get in with 7 losses. So must win is really an understatement when it comes to Tampa. They have everything to lose when it comes to this game. They should feel very lucky that Chris Godwin is back. Because they're going up against a team that is still neck deep in a rebuild. And that's the truth. But like I said in the recap, there's light at the end of that tunnel. There is light, and the one shining that light, it's Bryce Young and Chuba Hubbard.
Mm-hmm.
That is the beginning of a really solid offensive scheme. As I watched those highlights from when they played the Chiefs, again, we were talking about it off air. I stopped just about every play and asked myself, is this the Panthers playing up to the Chiefs, or is this the Chiefs playing down to the Panthers? Now, through the first half, again, it was more or less all Chiefs for the first half.
Mm-hmm.
But that's expected. You got to expect that from the reigning Super Bowl champions, where they're going to come in full speed ahead, and they're going to show you why they're great. The unexpected part was the second half. When the Panthers went into the locker room, they made X amount of adjustments on what they need to do, and they came out and they punched the Kansas City Chiefs in the mouth for 2 quarters straight.
Yep.
They cleaned up. They played great football. Chuba Hubbard started getting 2, 3, 4, 5 yards of carry.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young started slinging the ball. He got comfortable in the pocket. The pocket was formed right. That was the good thing. The best thing that I saw coming from the Panthers was how form-fitted that pocket was. And even when there was open gaps, you saw the comfort Bryce Young had behind his guys because he knew that there was someone that's going to come up in support of filling linebacker with Chuba Hubbard because he's a great pass blocker. He is not afraid to initiate contact when it comes to a blocking running back, and that's something you don't really see in the league anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's exemplified in Detroit with their 2 running backs. They're not afraid to get physical. Chuba Hubbard isn't afraid to get physical either. You can tell, like we were saying, when it comes to these teams, once they start losing together is when they start winning close games. And this is that precipice that the Panthers are at now. They're losing, but they're losing together. This was a good loss for the Panthers, and you can tell like they have all come into the same mindset and it clicked. So now they're all working together and they can win football games as it stands. Give them a good couple off seasons. If things go right, in my opinion, that offense needs 3 pieces. They need a starting ready tight end out of the draft. Anyone who's starter ready. They need a starter ready pulling guard. Left or right side, what have you, whichever one you want. He needs to be a pulling guard. and you need a starting ready fly guy. You need a vertical threat.
Mm-hmm.
And then you dip into the offseason, you go into free agency, you get yourself not too aged, you get yourself a veteran like Adam Thielen, but Adam Thielen's kind of on the way out now. You get another veteran for your slot, and then maybe you get a diamond in the rough receiver out of the draft that you can form fit to be your fourth guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then your offense can go off to the races if everything goes right. Defense, still a little sketchy with that secondary. There's still a big mismatch when it comes to Godwin going into this week.
Mm-hmm.
But even that defense, man, they got that pursuit and tackle thing down. They fly to the ball. They're very disciplined on the line of scrimmage. They don't fall for hard counts. There's a lot of good takeaways coming from Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
This is a winnable game.
Which is crazy to say too, because like earlier on in the season when you're like, Carolina winning games, what? Like, no, this is it. Like
right, like this is a winnable game.
Yeah. I I I love a lot of what you said too, and I want to piggyback off that too. This was again a good loss for the Panthers, but this was probably Bryce Young's best game as an NFL starter.
I agree.
And his stats are they're not sexy, right? He was 21 for 35, 263 yards, one touchdown, no interception, and then with 20 rushing yards as well. So it's like he put up, just under 300 yards of offense, which is pretty nice. But I think what really set it apart was that if you watched the game or watched the highlights of the game, there were a lot of little things that made him look different, where his feet, especially, when young quarterbacks come into the league, their feet are very jumpy. They don't set their feet very well, and that really kind of throws off their rhythm. It throws off their throw. It throws off just a little half step off of the play, right? But when a quarterback settles his feet, and you can look at Tom Brady over the years too, it's like when he's in the pocket and he's ready, and he's going through his progressions, his feet are set, and he's ready to make that throw on an instant. That was one thing I was really impressed with Bryce Young, was that his feet finally settled, which was very nice. And there were other points in time where the camera showed his face, and he was looking all over the field. His eyes were darting all over the field. So now the field of play has really opened up for him mentally. And I think that is huge, right? Like when these rookie quarterbacks or these quarterbacks come into the league, they have high expectations, and most of them start immediately. Like Bryce Young, he was condemned to start game one when last year, and from there, it's like he's just taking a beating, game in and game out. And it wasn't until this past week, or the game against the Giants in Germany, where he really looked good. And he's a small guy. When you look at his frame, you're like, oh, he looks like the size of Kyler Murray. He looks like a fucking kid compared to like grown men out there. It's just, but he's very accurate too. Another thing that I really liked about Bryce Young against the Chiefs was that when he was throwing leading his wide receivers to the ball. He wasn't throwing like on the spot or where they were. He was leading them to the position where they needed to be on man coverage too. So when the Chiefs defender is right on David Moore or Xavier Legette or Adam Thielen, he's throwing it over the defender, over the shoulder, making it so that it's a throw that only the wide receiver can make, and not giving the defenseman any opportunity to throw the ball. Those three things I was really impressed about with Bryce Young, and I hope that he really continues this trend, because, 2 wins of really good games, we've seen that from a lot of teams. We saw that from the Saints the first 2 games earlier this year, right? Any team can have a good stretch of 2 games, right? Let's see them build upon this. Let's see them do it one step at a time. So there's a lot of good in Bryce Young against the Chiefs. The Carolina defense needs a lot more pieces. I think that if they are to contend in the NFC South, they really got to get. I think they need to get a veteran linebacker to
Yeah.
really hold that defense, because it's been a while that teams go a while for, like, say a quarterback leaves. It takes a little bit of time for them for those shoes to fill, right? For instance, when obviously we talked about Broncos earlier, they finally found their quarterback after all these years of since Peyton Manning left, right? But they kept putting in new people, just trying to find the answer, right? Um, Carolina's defense has really missed Luke Kuechly since his retirement, and they have not, like, under multiple different head coaches, they just have not looked good. And I think that if Carolina really wants to rebuild, get that get a veteran linebacker on free agency or what have you. Hell, Bobby Wagner was on a 1-year deal with the Commanders, but he might stay. But he might,
Shaq
but
Barrett's out of retirement.
Shaq Barrett's out of retirement, so it's like I think that they need a defensive leader, and I think that they do have a lot of good players there, but uh, but man, they have really the absence of Luke Kuechly has been huge for the Panthers, and that's been like some impossible shoes that they have tried to fill, but it just could not. Right? Because how could you ever replace Luke Kuechly? Right? He was like the anchor of that defense, and it was fun to watch too. And he was basically a coach on the field, and that's what Carolina really needs right now. Is like they need a guy who's seen it all and can really lead their young guys, because there's a lot of young guys there, right? But you need a leader. And I'm not sure if Bryce Young's that leader, because I don't think he is at the moment. He could be, maybe, but like just a team leader, they need to find that. And I think once they do find that, it restores faith in the franchise. It shows us like, okay, look, no, we're doing the right moves. We're making the right stuff. And I know you said like the Panthers are a couple off seasons away from really kind of getting there, but that's under the if you trust David Tepper to make the right decision.
Right.
And that's the thing too, is like with Carolina, is like I feel for them, because as good as they could be, right, in the future, it's like potential is intangible and it's all speculative, right? But they have a looming shadow over them, and that's their owner. And their owner's very impatient. He's very he wants
He's
to
very impulsive.
he's very impulsive, and they haven't made like good trades that have really benefited them. Uh they haven't really it's they've really shot themselves in the foot time and time again, just with bad decisions, much like what we've talked about with the Giants earlier on this year. Just a series of bad decisions kind of led them to where they are now. And the same can be said for Carolina, because I think going into this year, Carolina was expected to be the worst team in the league. Now, the Giants claim that at this point in time because they had the first overall draft pick, and the Panthers beat them. Um, but there's again, when you're losing like this, don't look for wins. Look for growth and look for development. And there has been, you can see that within these last two games with Carolina, and I'm really happy. Well, not happy, but like I'm optimistic about them going forward more than I have been entering the season.
Yeah, this has been like a tale of two seasons when it comes to them. And again, it feels like they're at the same crossroads that the Chargers and the Lions were at when they were at the precipice of something happening. You know, you and I kind of saw that, and we spoke about how there's something brewing here, there's something brewing there, and then you look at Detroit now; they're a powerhouse. You look at Chargers; they're more or less a playoff team. Things, of
Yep.
course, need to go right in every direction for them to lead down that path. I agree. If they were to go for a veteran linebacker, that would be huge. You know, the absence of Luke Kuechly, that's a 10-year absence. He's been out of the
It
league for a long time.
but yet
You
they
know what I'm
haven't found
saying?
anyone to
They
replace him.
haven't even tried, and that's the
Exactly.
problem. You know,
Hmm.
as soon as Luke Kuechly bounced, it was like they totally transitioned to offense. They went out and they got desperation moves in the draft for wide receivers and running backs that they wound up getting rid of while still on rookie deals.
Mm-hmm.
And it's poor decisions, like you said, just shooting themselves in the foot. If they do have a couple of chances this year to get a really good veteran linebacker, and that really is because of San Francisco not
Mm-hmm.
being able to afford their starting lineup on both sides of the ball completely.
Mm-hmm.
So someone on that defense is not going to be on that team next year.
Yeah, whether
So
it's Fred
Dre
Warner,
Greenlaw,
Dre Greenlaw, yeah.
Nick Bosa, so you guys, there's some choices there. I believe is Roquan Smith on a contract here.
When we picked him up 2 years ago, we signed him for a 5-year deal, so he's got 3 more years left
He's got 3
with the
years left.
Ravens.
All
Yep.
right. So they could absolutely tap into free agency and find a stud veteran linebacker who's ready to play. It's more or less up to the owner and the managers to do so.
Mm-hmm.
The hope that they will do that, it's hard because again, you watch them. They had Luke Kuechly on defense. They never really got anybody else to help him on defense, and then they transitioned to offense. Now, if they were to go back and look for a defenseman, it would almost draw the concern of if they leave the offense where it's at. Because
Mm-hmm.
the offense still needs pieces too. They need to do it as a fluid piece
Oh yeah, they need to address both sides of the ball.
at the same time. And I don't
Yeah.
know that they are responsible enough as a franchise to do that cohesively.
Mm-hmm.
It's concerning that they almost look like they're hyper focusing one side of the ball before hitting the other,
Mm-hmm.
which is okay in a sense. It's just it's going to take them a lot longer. But if that is what it takes for Carolina to start making waves, then I guess so be it. Some rebuilds are slower than others.
Mm-hmm.
If it becomes a responsible 6-7 year rebuild, there's going to be some growing pains there.
Well, that's what it's been for the
Right.
last couple of years.
It's
been like
been
a
10
rebuild
years
for
of
the last
desperation.
yeah, it's been like a rebuild for like the last 8 years or so with the Panthers. It's crazy.
Right. But now again, like we said, it's starting to click on offense.
Yep.
We haven't seen it click in years.
Mm-hmm.
Something works right now. You need to roll off of it. And if you can steal this win from Tampa, then by God, you're off to the races.
Oh yeah, if they really play spoiler to Tampa, that'd be really funny to see.
Yo, that'd be insanity.
And that would really decimate Tampa's shot at the playoffs. And I want to move to Tampa real quick, just to talk about them for a little bit. They're sitting at 5-6 at the moment. Before they played the Giants last week, they were on a 4-game losing streak, and it's that is really tough, especially when like your division is still winnable, but it's not as easy of a road as it's going to be. Tampa's going to have to scrap out a lot of games, and that's just what it is. Like I'm glad to see Chris Godwin's back, and I mean, but he's obviously not 100% because he was injured mid-season, so
Right.
he's coming back mid-season, and Mike Evans is still out. But I think, I want to just read their losses real quick. So actually, yeah. So when they beat the Saints 51-27, right? They smacked them, right? Then they lost to the Ravens that Monday night. Both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin go out. You lost to the Falcons. You lost to the Chiefs, the Bucks, and then you beat up the Giants. And so, but like, man, that 4-game stretch where 4 out of your 6 losses just came back to back to back to back, that's tough. But this game, if you get yourself to 6-6, you're still alive, and you could still get in there, especially where they just need to be better than Atlanta. And that's really it. They're like the Saints, they're kind of done for the year. They're 4-7. The Saints aren't really a like playoff team. They're not playoff bound by any metric. And neither is Carolina. So Tampa's really kind of fighting for like they just have to get that better record than Atlanta. But remember, Atlanta beat Tampa twice this year. Atlanta swept them. So if the standings come down and if both Atlanta and Tampa are say 9-8 by the end of the season,
Atlanta gets that right.
Atlanta's going, and Tampa's going home. So that's why this game against Carolina is very important because those two losses for Tampa against Atlanta were huge for just how this division's going to roll out. Again, Baker's been really good, but man, the defense has really regressed in the last couple of games. They've been giving up a lot of yards. Teams can really throw on them. And that's what we're seeing too, is a lot of teams just have their way against that Tampa defense and just like bend them to the point where at a certain point they break. And they can't hold off the floodgates forever. And Tampa can't. Again, they're going to have to scrap out a lot of wins if they want to make it. But against the Giants, yeah, that's an easy win. But against the Panthers, right now it's not looking like an easy win, which is crazy to say.
Right, 10 weeks ago, you would think this would be a roll. Like,
yeah,
let's say this was like week 4 and we were talking this game.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa's on a roll and Carolina hasn't won a game yet. They just benched Bryce Young. This is a totally different conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
And they have life on that offense, and like you were saying, Tampa has had that issue more or less all year where quarterbacks can just sit in the pocket and throw and just unload on that secondary when it comes to yards.
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young is showing that he can throw the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And he can throw the ball effectively, and he gets it to where he needs to be.
He's not a deep ball guy either.
No, he's like a Drew Brees.
He's like Drew Brees, but like not prime Drew Brees.
No.
I'd probably say like San
Chargers
Diego.
Drew Brees.
Yeah, exactly. He's like Chargers Drew Brees, where it's like it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Right.
He's going to be very accurate and get the ball there, and it's going to just like slice and dice up and down the field.
So I'm going to wear you down for 60 minutes.
Exactly. And I think that's what really was to his success against the Chiefs too. In the second half when the defense is tired and you're just taking advantage of it. It's like, okay, another completion here, another completion there, another completion there, first down, another completion there, and then so on and so forth. So Tampa's defense, and there's a lot of great players on that defense, which is crazy too. And again, Todd Bowles is a defensive guy. They still have Levante David. They still have Vita Vea. They still have Antoine Winfield Jr. They have leaders in all different sectors of the defense, and yet they're still giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards per game.
And that just comes down to conditioning.
Giants game aside, because the Giants are the Giants, right? But in that 4-game stretch, that was if they won one of those games, I think that really puts them in better standings to make a playoff run. But man, that was a tough gauntlet to go against. But with Chris Godwin back in the fold, it really, again, opens up the field for Baker Mayfield a little bit more. It doesn't make their offense one-dimensional. And now Baker's like, okay, I can see the safety double team Chris Godwin, because at this point in time, you got to double team Chris Godwin.
Right, you have to do it.
So who's getting open in the field, and who's the one-on-one? Who can I exploit on the defense there? Meanwhile, while giving it to Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, they've been running the air out of the football, but obviously to not big success. But I mean, again, against the Giants, that's a whole different thing. But I mean, Tampa, they could win the NFC South still. But if they don't win this game against Carolina, it makes that road a lot more difficult for them.
Like I said in the beginning of this segment, man, 7 losses is a hard playoff run on any
Mhm.
given season. So for 7 losses in a season like this, I don't think a 7 loss team makes the playoffs this year. There's
Well,
just too much competition.
well, if a team has 7 losses, that means they have 10 wins, right? Without a tie, obviously.
Right.
So 10-7 might be good enough to
Depending on who you beat.
yeah. So like for instance, if Tampa goes to 10-7, that could be winnable for that division because again, they're just fighting against the Falcons in that division. 10-7 could get you there. It's where you're getting 8 losses and you're 9-8. You're at best 9-8. That's really tough because at that point, like we've seen a couple 9-8 teams in the last couple years since they added that extra game. We've seen some 9-8 teams be good, but not good enough to make the playoffs.
Right.
And in Tampa, it's like right now, at best, if they win out right now, they go 11-6. So theoretically, they could be an 11-win team, right? They could be a 7-loss team and still have 10 wins, and that could be enough. But at this point, they don't have complete control of their destiny because of those 2 losses against the Falcons.
Right.
So they need, if they are to make the playoffs, and I don't see the Bucs losing out or winning out. There's going to be games where they're going to win some and they're going to lose, but they don't control their own fate, and they need a lot of help to get them to that extra push.
Yeah, and at this point in time, I would not want to be the ones playing, warming up Bryce Young. Sorry,
Mhm.
I wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be the team that plays them as they're setting into their own.
Mhm.
Especially when even during some of the best games, we give up too many yards. And it comes down to that defense. They run out of gas, and they get frustrated when they don't get to the quarterback early.
Mhm.
And that seems to be a running theme with Tampa for the past couple of years now. If they get to the quarterback early in the game, they're there all night. But if they can't get there early, they're probably not going to get there at all.
Yeah.
If they make waves early, you hear about how explosive the Tampa defense is, how they blow up the backfield all the time, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But if they don't get there within the first couple of drives, you don't really hear about the Tampa defense come the end of the weekend.
Yeah, they kind of stall.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So if they get after it early, maybe we'll hear about Vita Vea having a sack or two. But if they don't, we may be talking about a Carolina win.
Which would be very interesting, and it would shake a lot of things up
It
in
would
the
make
NFL.
things very interesting.
Oh man, again, Tampa and Carolina, again, 2 teams where it's like when you look at it, face value, it's like why talk this game? But again, there's a lot to talk about with this game, and I hope that I hope we see the Panthers that we saw last week enter this week, because then we have a really good game on our hands.
I agree.
Oh man, so any final thoughts on this game, CP?
Just keep your head up, man. This game could be really interesting depending on the Carolina team that comes out. I'm not going to say fireworks, but I'm going to say that this could be pretty electric.
Oh man, I like it, man. I'm excited for it. So that's the first game that we wanted to talk about. Second game that we wanted to discuss is the 49ers and the Bills. This is the Sunday night primetime game this upcoming week. And again, the same thing that we talked about with the Bucks Panthers is like, when you look at this, if we were talking about this game week 4, it would be a different story. But now week 12, this is a very different game than it would be if it was an earlier game. But
Start us off.
So I'll start us off right now. I don't think the 49ers are winning this game. Spoiler alert, I'm not picking them to win this game. But man, it's again, injuries. Sometimes it's not who you play, but when you play them. If this was the 49ers Bills of week 4, okay, then we have like two juggernaut teams going against each other. But right now we have one juggernaut team going up against a injury riddled team right now. And the 49ers, they have since what was it last week's IR report, they had 8 players on IR, and and as of today, it is reported that Brock Purdy was not throwing at practice today, which leads me to believe that he's not going to be playing on Sunday.
Oh my God.
So, which means that Brandon Allen is going to get his second start with the 49ers. And we were talking about this a little off air. When the 49ers played the Chiefs in the first Super Bowl, the year after, they got decimated with injuries, but that happened in it happened in like one game where like 4 or 5 players all got like big name players all got hurt. Bosa, Garoppolo, Kittle, like it was all at once, and it just kind of wrecked their season from there. This time around it's week by week. Week by week, like a player goes down, another player goes down, another player goes down, another player goes down, and just when like kind of like whack-a-mole, one player's healthy, Christian McCaffrey returns, but then Brock Purdy is injured and he's on the IR, and so this is just another one of those seasons where again, that's a year after they played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and they're just decimated with injuries, and it affects them. And it's not any player's fault. No player ever deserves to get injured. It's just this team right now it's how do I phrase it? It's so set, like it's just very disheartening to see the 49ers as a shell of what they were the last couple years, because the last couple years they would have been a team to watch, and a versatile team with explosive weapons, and we've seen them just like be absolute contenders. We know what they're completely capable of, but this year they are mortal. Like and like any mortal man, every mortal man gets hurt. Um, and it's just really sad to see because now that division has really opened up because of that. Right now, we talked before, the Seahawks lead that division right now at 6-5, but I wouldn't expect them to keep that lead, especially with the Cardinals breathing down their neck at 6-5 as well, and the Rams doing better than the 49ers as well at 5-6, but they have that tiebreaker over the 49ers too. So the 49ers are at this point in time, if we were to talk about this earlier on in the year and say, yeah, by Thanksgiving, the 49ers are going to be last in their division, it'd be very
laughable.
weird. Exactly. But injuries take their tolls. And it's a physical game. It's a full contact game. And injuries are a part of it too. And I think that much like we've talked about with the Dolphins with Tua, the talent gap in Tua's absence is great, and right now the Dolphins are staying alive because Tua is as healthy as he can be.
Right.
Yeah, he's healthy enough. Right now, the 49ers, it's like the talent gap from like what they are collectively as a team in the past to what they are now is night and day. They are again the shell of the team that we thought they were, and that's not like to anyone's fault in particular, but man, if they have to rely on Brandon Allen to play the rest of the season, they're going to stay at 4th in their division.
Yeah. This with the 49ers, it's almost like the ghosts of football's teams past, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, for years, we've known what this first line, offensive defense, is capable of.
Mm-hmm.
All while trying to skip around the fact that they have no roster depth. Everyone tried to squeeze around that little fact with all these contract signings and how heavy they were, how versatile they were. We said it a bunch of times last year. They are the most versatile roster in the league when they're at 100%. There's not a lot of packages that can stop them as an accumulative group. And that's phenomenal. They are a phenomenal first-line group. It is a 52-man roster.
Mm-hmm.
Next man up needs to apply no matter who your first line is. And when the talent gap, like you were saying with Tua, it's so drastic that you can't get out of the way for one position. Imagine for 8 positions and key positions
Yep.
to the point where you have another key position player who has played 9 consecutive games with a fractured ankle, being Fred Warner,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows he can't afford to go down because of this team.
Yep.
That is such a heavy load on an already injured player going forward, and he's a leader, and he's a leader on that team, and he's a great
Mm-hmm.
locker room guy, the whole nine. 9 consecutive games on a fractured ankle is wild.
Yeah.
But like you said, at the end of the day, this team is a shell of what it was just earlier this season, not just years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier this year, they were a much better formatted team.
Yep.
And again, we said it a little bit last week, that falls on coaching and conditioning. I understand when it comes to the scout and the first teams, you have your first team and you want them to be prepared, but you have to have people who are ready to run first team reps.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, you're going to set yourself back.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have a constant flow at practice of people getting first team reps just to see who can be there at a moment's notice, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have your reserves ready, so when catastrophe hits, and catastrophe hit this year in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about death by 1,000 cuts. Every week they've been getting cut down with critical injuries. Critical injury after critical injury after critical injury, and to where now they just, like you said, if this was talking week 4, we would say that the 49ers were probably going to roll the Bills because the Bills were off to a very slow start this year.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking at it, the Bills are playing their best football.
Yep.
Josh Allen's playing his best football this year. He is a top contender for the MVP conversation right now.
As he should.
As he should be. He has a handful of interceptions with a fuck ton of touchdowns and a bunch of yards. And they're playing very strong football. The 49ers can't get out of their own way because attrition and just lack of reps with first team have set in totally with this team.
Mm-hmm.
And it is upsetting. It's disheartening to see because what this team was capable of last year, and we never got to see them. Knowing that this team we're probably not going to see them in a Super Bowl, right? Because after this year, a lot of these members are going to disperse.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect the 49ers
you
to
can't
be in the Super
expect
Bowl
them
for
to
a
make
little
a Super
while.
Bowl, because after this year, a lot of these players are leaving.
Yeah.
So that roster from 2-3 years ago, that was, this is Super Bowl 49ers. That was it. That's it. That was the team. That was the year to do it. It was 2 years ago.
Or last year, they were a overtime away from winning the Super Bowl last year.
Right. That was it.
They were at one of the closest teams to ever win a Super Bowl. Again, the second Super Bowl ever to go into overtime, and a few just mistakes here and there. Dre Greenlaw again got hurt on
running out
onto
off
the
sideline.
field,
Right?
And that's not his fault or anything.
That's a cut to the throat.
It's just just one after the other, and yet they were still that close.
Right.
They still could have won that game,
and
that's what's upsetting.
But it being that close back then has now turned into a mile-wide gap because there was no preparation for the breakdown. I don't think anybody expected a breakdown like this to happen, but you have to accept that there is a chance that something like this can happen. There is a chance that you lose your whole roster in a season. There's always that chance.
And to your point too, and I'm sorry for interrupting, they're a team comprised of a lot of veterans.
Right.
So that's the thing, is when you expect to have aged players, like players that have played for like well over 5 to 6 to 8 years, well over that.
Right.
They're not young guys anymore.
Right. Got to remember the average career is 8 years.
I thought it was like 3 years was the average.
For an NFL player, I thought it was between
Yeah.
6 and 8.
No, it's a lot lower because there's a lot of guys that come into the league that
And leave early, right?
Yeah.
Right,
So,
that's
like,
valid.
average, yeah.
Okay. But even still, 2-3 years ago, these veterans were peak. They were at their peak.
Yep.
And that's all you got. You got yourselves an overtime loss in the Super Bowl. That was your guys' ceiling, in my opinion. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see the Niners in a Super Bowl. We're definitely not going to see this roster head to the Super Bowl. There's
Not
just
this
too much.
year. Not this year, not for a while.
Then we're never going to I'm talking about this roster. We're not going to see this roster in the Super Bowl because this is the last year that we're going to see this 49ers roster together completely.
Yeah.
You're going to see bits and pieces start to move all around the league after this offseason, coming from the 49ers because they just simply can't afford anybody anymore.
Hey, Carolina, get Fred Warner or Dre Greenlaw. Just saying.
Catch yourself with the Fred Warner on your team.
Good things happen. Good things happen.
Some magic can happen.
I do want to say, too, again, not who you play, when you play them. Bills are coming off a bye week. So they are fresh.
Right.
Like, they are as fresh can be. They beat the Chiefs 2 weeks ago.
So they went in hot.
So they have momentum. They have full confidence in themselves. They believe in themselves. And they're as healthy as they can be since week 1. So,
yeah,
and
go ahead.
No, like they're just coming off their bye week.
Yeah, I just hope that they don't get like the bye week hangover, where it's like they have the week off. It's the age-old conversation of, do you keep a motor running if it's hot, or do you give it some rest?
Well, I mean, they had to rest.
They earned
regardless.
This bye week. They had to.
Yeah.
They had no choice but to.
I think under Sean McDermott, he's had a lot of good success for keeping his team going after the bye week.
You're right.
So Sean McDermott too is he's a pretty good coach in the league. I mean, a lot of the Bills' success goes to Josh Allen.
Well, yeah.
But and rightfully so too, because he is much like Lamar is to the Ravens and Mahomes is to the Chiefs. It's like Josh Allen is the Bills. And he is exactly like Bills Mafia, Bills culture, and the team will ride and die on him. But we got to give a lot of credit to Sean McDermott because this Bills roster underwent a lot of changes in the offseason. They dropped and cut a lot of key players because they couldn't really keep up with the cap. But they haven't missed a beat. They really haven't missed a beat. And that could be the optimism or the optimist in me wants to think that's like, okay, if the Bills can do that, the 49ers could do that too. If they have the cap's going to come for them, and if they're able to get that depth and really make those key signings, it makes that transition from veterans to young guys very easy, because now on the Bills there's a lot of young guys there, both offensively and defensively, and they look great. This Bills team looks like it is poised to make a Super Bowl run. And Josh Allen is playing like an MVP caliber guy. He's got 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 316 rushing yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns. So in total, he's got just under 2,000 yards, 3,000 yards of total offense, and 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. But the big number here is he's only been sacked 13 times.
There it is.
And, well, they're doing something right. They're keeping him on his feet, and he is just... Good things happen when you're able to protect your quarterback. But, man, again, the Bills... I feel for the Niners, man, because they walk into Buffalo, season on the line, and that's a tough game to win. The Bills are red hot in Buffalo in winter time. Now we're getting snow games, so
right. Now it's cold.
The cold is going to take their toll, and there's not a dome in Buffalo. So
no, and Buffalo likes to play in the cold.
Yeah,
they show that every year that they are ready to play in the cold.
Mm-hmm. So I really feel for the Niners, man, because their season and their chance to make the playoffs really stems from this game.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to this game a couple weeks ago. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be a really good game. Now I'm like,
This is gonna
man,
be a tough game to watch.
this is going to be a one-sided game. And I hope to I know the bettors in Vegas, uh, they actually just today fixed the line. They actually have the 49ers as 2-point favorites. I have no idea
How?
why. I have
How?
no idea why.
How do you see that?
I was talking with my dad about this earlier. I'm like, how the fuck did they take the Bills getting points, please? Like, just like, I'm not a betting man, and I don't do parlays and shit like that. But if there's certain teams that are getting points, you take them. Like, if the Steelers are getting points, you take those points every fucking day.
Right.
If the Broncos, or sorry, if not the Broncos, if the Bills are getting points, you take that every fucking time.
I don't understand in what world does this 49ers offense favor over this Bills team.
In my mind, I'm thinking maybe the bettors are betting that Brock Purdy is going to be playing this game. I don't at this point in time, I don't see it. I mean, he was benched or like he sat out last week because of his shoulder injury, and it's not like a tear or anything like that. Oh, what do you see?
Dre Greenlaw comes back this week.
That's pretty good.
That's big.
That's big. But again, you got Fred Warner playing on a fractured ankle, and Dre Greenlaw, as good as he is, man, that's tough to stop Josh Allen right now. And I also want to give a big shout out to James Cook too. He's the second-year running back. He has been an absolute force of nature for the Bills, and he's one of the best players that they could have drafted because, man,
I'm wrong.
is a great runner. Oh, what happened?
I'm wrong. He's still out. I'm looking at the whole injury report right now.
Oh, okay.
As of November 27th, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 questionables. Dre Greenlaw's out. Feliciano IR center. There's guard.
So 12 questionable,
12
out.
questionable. No, more than 2 out because you got more on injured reserve. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on injured reserve. And then another Drake Jackson is also out. So that's what, 16 players?
That's 10 out with 12 questionable. So you have 22
injuries on your team on both sides of the ball in a 52-man roster.
CP, I don't recall an injury reserve that extensive in a long time.
I don't think I've heard of an injury bug hitting like that ever.
22 out of your 53-man roster has an now again, granted, I'm guessing there's probably other players that are just banged up, and you got because Shannon Sharp said it at this point, everyone's dealing with injury right now, but it's whoever's just kind of toughing it out and stuff like that.
Yeah, but it's the injury reserve thing. It's you guys have been out for weeks.
Exactly.
And will continue to be out for weeks.
So that 22 out of 53-man roster, that is huge. That is huge.
That's half your team.
Yeah, it's just under half your team. It's just
my God.
And so I feel for the Niners because they're limping into Buffalo,
trying
to salvage some part of their season, and that's a tall order, man. That's a really tall order to fill, especially if Purdy was playing, you'd have a better chance. But with Brandon Allen injured, with Brandon Allen as your quarterback, that's tough. And Brandon Allen, I mean, he was 17 for 29, 199 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But they also didn't really give the ball to Christian McCaffrey a lot either. He had 11 carries for 31 yards, 3 catches for 37 yards. I think that they abandoned the run game way too early against Green Bay. And I think that if you're going to be asking your backup quarterback to match Josh Allen throw for throw and throw for 30 times in a game,
Possible.
you're setting yourself up to fail. And like Christian McCaffrey, it's like, yes, he's coming back off injury, but he needs, like, you need to give him more carries than 11. Like, he needs to be touching the ball at least 20 times. At least 20 times. And I know, like, yeah, he's still not 100%, but at this point, if there's any season to salvage, whoever's willing to play, you gotta make sure that they get the rock.
Yeah, I was just looking. Even with Brock Purdy, like you said, he was limited at practice. He wasn't throwing. Even Christian McCaffrey is being limited with his runs at practice. So it's like they're playing very limited right now. So they're playing extra conservative. And listen, the Bills team that is around this year, the healthiest of teams, has troubles.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this isn't the Josh Allen that can go out into a game and throw 3 interceptions. That's not going to happen this year. Last year's Josh Allen is gone. He cleaned up his game immensely.
Oh, that was a couple years ago he cleaned it up. But
it was a couple years in a row where he had the most interceptions in the row.
Oh, yeah.
Now he only has a handful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
he's only got 5 this year.
Right. He has become one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league.
Mm-hmm.
For the healthiest of teams, that's a problem. And now you're coming in half a roster down.
Yeah.
Like, thinking about that as a coach, my heart goes out to Kyle Shanahan. Like, you were just handed one of the most impossible tasks of the year. It's try and slow down a lithium hot team with half your team, with half a roster, and not a single Pro Bowler to go around.
It's really tough, man. And again, like, the Niners, again, we've seen what they're capable of, but man, this Bills team is different. Like, right now, like, the Bills, this is probably the best Bills team under Josh Allen and Sean McDermott.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Because it's the most balanced Bills team under them. They're much like we talked about with the Broncos before. They're playing complementary football on both sides of the ball. Mm-hmm. Defense helps the offense helps the defense. And on the offensive side, it's like Josh Allen, even though he's got like he's got some pretty nice Keon Coleman, he's a really solid rookie, man. Like, he's been really good this year. Amari Cooper, we can't forget about Amari Cooper.
Can't sleep on him.
And he plays great in home, and so I would expect for him to have a really good game. Shakir, he's a great slot guy, but man, it's James Cook, man. For me, I'm sold on James Cook. I think he's one of the top 10 running backs in the league, but he's just so efficient and he kind of reminds me of Pacheco a little bit.
Isaiah Pacheco, okay.
Where he just runs hard.
Right, he just doesn't stop. He just runs with aggression.
He just runs angry, and it's so great to see.
There's some of those players that run where it's like you watch them run and you hear the air coming out of their mouth when they're
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, those just angry runners where it's like they're just like seething spit while they're running.
Yep. But man, this is, again, I wish this game was in week 4, but here we are, Thanksgiving weekend, and the 49ers, their season comes to this. And let's see if they're able to really deal with an impossible task. I mean, we've seen the impossible done before. We've seen big upsets happen before, right? Anything can happen any given Sunday. But like I said at the beginning of this, I don't expect them to win this game.
I don't think many people expect them to win. I don't know what the odds makers are seeing in Vegas that just about the rest of the country isn't seeing. Unless they're really seeing a bye week hangover from the Bills, I don't see San Francisco coming out on top of this.
Yeah, it's really, really tough for the 49ers, especially going forward too. So my final thoughts is I just want to go over the rest of their games, and let's just quickly. You tell me win-loss. So Bills probably
L.
not. L. Bears come to town.
W.
Rams.
L.
Dolphins.
L.
Lions,
L.
Cardinals.
L.
You beat
And
Chicago,
that's
and then you're
history.
that's so.
And that's it.
Now that's we're informally doing that, so that's subject to change when we make our picks per the week. But like looking ahead after this game, it's like they have a lot of tough teams to play against.
Right. And if they eke out one win, it'll be a lot. And that's the
Yeah.
truth. That is the sad truth. And even that Bears game, I'm just saying it to be biased. The Bears the Bears could very well win that game.
They could, they really could. But oh man, CP, any final thoughts on this one?
Stay healthy, San Francisco. This is going to be a bumpy ride.
49ers fans, you've been spoiled
You've been loyal
for too
this
long.
far out.
You've been spoiled with riches and a great team for the last couple of years, but this year it's come back down to earth. And like
Right.
everything just comes back to earth, and there's balance in all things.
And it always comes down harder than it goes up. It's just what it is.
It's just what it is. It's just the nature of the game. So, with that being said, those were the two games that we wanted to talk about this week. A lot at stake for a lot of teams, and I know we'll be talking a lot of playoff implication as the weeks go on. But with that being said, Chris Palmer, are you ready to make some picks?
Yeah, Thanksgiving weekend. It should be fun.
Let's do it. Let's start with the first game on Thanksgiving. The Chicago Bears coming to the Lions to play Detroit. Who you got for this one?
Give me the Lions at home. I think they finally break that Thanksgiving drought. Chicago doesn't stand a chance walking into that home field.
Yeah, I feel for the Bears as well, because they're really kind of struggling to find their way, but the Lions, they are rolling and rolling and rolling. I'm taking the Lions as well. They're going to be eating a lot of turkey that day. Okay, let's move on to Jerry World, where obviously the second game of Thanksgiving always takes place in the land of Dallas. Actually, it's Arlington, Texas, to be more specific. But the Giants play the Cowboys. Chris Palmer, who you got?
You're going to laugh at me for this one. Give me the Giants.
I'm surprised.
Give me the Giants.
Tell me your thoughts.
Because the Dallas Cowboys have had a lot of trouble winning at home this year.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of trouble winning at home. Their defense really isn't much. And they're just that again, it's the home field shambles that just makes me feel like they might fall on their face against this one. I could be wrong, and I'm probably gonna be wrong, but I'm gonna go with the Giants on this one because fuck Jerry World.
It's funny because the Cowboys have a problem with winning at home, but the Giants have a problem with winning.
Right.
So it's like someone's got to. I mean,
something's got to give.
It could be a Thanksgiving tie for all we know. I'm gonna take Dallas. I'm gonna take Dallas though. I just think that the Giants kind of want to lose now at this point.
They should.
And Dallas, Jerry's got a lot of pride, and he wants his. And I know McCarthy's going to have his team be like, "Hey, look, win it for Jerry." You're like, come on, we got to win it for Jerry. And
so I don't get fired at the end of the year.
So I don't get fucking fired. Exactly. So I'm going to take the Cowboys to beat the Giants, which brings us to the last game on Thanksgiving. Probably the best game of the day. The Dolphins and the Packers. Very interesting matchup. But CP, who you got for this one?
You're going to have to give me Green Bay for this one. This is going to be a very physical game, but I don't think it's going to be very high scoring. It has the capabilities to, but I don't think it's going to go that route. I think Green Bay is going to come out with the win, though.
I'm with you. I think the Packers are going to win this one over the Dolphins. Again, I like to win the Dolphins. They're finding their stride again. They've been scoring 30 points a game consistently since he's been back. But the Dolphins do struggle playing in cold weather. That is just something that it's just been an Achilles heel for the Dolphins the last couple of years. They just really struggle to play in the cold, and you're playing in Green Bay Thanksgiving night. It's only going to get colder from here on out. So, but the elements aside, Packers have been playing very well. A very balanced team. Josh Jacobs is running it so well. and you got all these young, talented guys on that roster. I'm gonna go with the Packers to beat the Dolphins. Which brings us to Black Friday. We have another Black Friday game this year. This is the second year the NFL is doing a Black Friday game, and it is the Raiders against the Chiefs in Kansas City. I'm going to take the Chiefs to beat the Raiders. Raiders look very, very lost, and Kansas City, I think they just really want this win. But CB, who you got for this one?
Give me the Chiefs, but let's hope for no controversy. There was controversy even with that Panthers game. There was controversy.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope for a clean victory from the Chiefs.
Yeah, let's. If if they do win, let's see how they win, right?
Correct.
So, because not all wins are created equal, not all losses are created equal. So, this will be a solo stage primetime game. So, hey, let's get ready for it. So let's go to Sunday's slate of games. Starting in the AFC South, the Houston Texans go to play the Jacksonville Jaguars. CP, who you got for this one?
Give me Houston. I feel like there's going to be a bounce back game. Yeah, Houston's going to win this game, no problem.
Okay. I'm going to take Houston as well. Yeah, I just agree with you. I think that this is going to be a bounce back game for them. The Jags, man, they are just. There's going to be a lot of off-season changes in Jacksonville. I mean, I guess they're overdue for it a little while, but I know Mr. Khan is probably not happy with Doug Peterson's performance this year. Let's keep an eye if Doug Peterson remains in Jacksonville this offseason, but I'll take Houston to win this game. Let's move to New England, where the Colts come to play the Patriots. Who you got for this one?
You have to give me the Colts. This is another team where their season's riding on the line. With this, they're one of those teams that have 7 losses, and they need to win every game to even have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And the Patriots are they're a bad team, so they could win this game.
Yeah, I'll take the Colts as well. Again, the only thing that concerned me though is the Colts finding an offensive rhythm. And of course, again, against the Lions last week, that's a tall order because the Lions are the best team in the NFC. But the Colts typically do score points, but their defense kind of lacks. I hope that they're able to find an offensive rhythm, but I would not be surprised if New England were to upset them. Drake May is playing pretty good, and Gerard Mayo. Hey, we'll see. We'll see how the rest of the season shakes up. But I'll take the Colts as well. Let's move to Atlanta. Chargers coming to play the Falcons. Who you got, CP?
Give me Atlanta. I've been riding with Atlanta this year. Chargers played very well against the Ravens, but I think the Falcons are half a step ahead.
Okay. I'm going to take the Chargers on this. I think one thing that really was to the detriment of the Chargers was that they abandoned the run a little too early against the Ravens. If they would have committed to running the ball, I think that would have really helped them, especially even though, yes, the Ravens are the best run-stop team, and we suck at defending the pass. I think that if the Chargers were to really take control of this game, it has to be on the ground. So, even despite the injury to J.K. Dobbins, I'll take the Chargers. Let's go to the MetLife, where the Seahawks come to play the New York Jets. CP, I'm guessing you're going Jets, right?
No, I'm going to go Seattle, but my God, if MetLife takes another casualty off of Seattle, that stadium's really got to be set on fire. They take another fucking injury.
Yeah, again, let's hope no injuries at all. I'm going to take Seattle. Man, I like their defensive personnel a lot better than the Jets' defensive personnel. But man, Geno Smith, he's just finding ways to win. He's really coming back in the clutch, and it's fun to see. And hey, we get a Geno Smith revenge game, so that's always fun to see
That's
too.
it.
Okay, let's move to Washington, where the Titans come to play the Commanders. Who you got?
Got to give me the Commanders. Think this is gonna be another bounce back game. You know,
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Commanders as well. I do want to see they've kind of regressed a little bit on offense. I do want to take a look as to why, but I think that they should bounce back against the Titans. Their defense isn't really that good. I'll take the Commanders. Which brings us to Cincinnati, where your Steelers go to play the Bengals. Who you got?
fuck the Bengals.
So I'm guessing you're going Cincy.
No, I'm going Pittsburgh. Since he has a very hard time beating us throughout the year,
hmm
so I don't think we should have a problem winning this game.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Steelers as well. Cincy, it's weird. They just can't help but lose.
They
Even
can't help
when
themselves.
even when Joe Burrow's playing, he's probably playing his best football of his career right now, and they're 4-7. That is a really tough pill to swallow in Cincinnati. Um, but I'll take the Steelers to beat the Bengals. Let's move to Minnesota, where the Arizona Cardinals come to play the Vikings. Who you got for this one?
I almost wanted to talk this game. This game could be some
looks good.
fireworks, man.
It looks good.
You have to give me Minnesota, but I think Arizona's going to run 10 rounds.
Yeah, I agree with you, but man, the Vikings have been very impressive this year.
Yeah.
They're 9-2.
Sam Darnold is playing very, very well.
He just is. He looks like he really found his groove under Kevin O'Connell, man. And Vikings look a lot better than even I thought that they would be. I didn't think the Vikings were going to be much this year, but man, they are really proving a lot of people wrong. So
Yeah.
I'll take the Vikings as well to beat the Cardinals. Let's go on down south to the Big Easy, where the Rams come to play the Saints. I'm going to take the Rams on this one. They're still a viable team, and if they win this game, they go to 6-6, and hey, that division's still up for grabs. So I'll take the Rams. They have a lot to play for, more than the Saints.
Yeah, 100%. I'm going to have to go with the Rams as well. They have more of a pulse than the Saints at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to go with them. But this could be an interesting game, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's go down to Carolina. The first game that we talked about. Bucks Panthers. Who you got?
This one's tough, and it shouldn't be tough.
I know, right?
You know what? Give me Carolina with the upset. I'm going to put faith in Bryce Young and Chuba Hubbard in that offense that they could scrap and they could fight, and this could be the turning point that they need.
I hope you're right, man. For their sake, I mean, this is really tough.
Tampa,
Mhm.
that's a statement.
It's a statement on both ends too. It shows that the Panthers are like, okay, we found our way.
We ain't ready yet, but we're coming.
And then for Tampa, it's like, oh, you have lost your way.
Right.
So I'm going to take Tampa to win, but I want to see good play from Carolina. I want to see good play all around, obviously, but like, let's see if they can keep up these
Consistent
games of
football.
Exactly, like playing well consistently. So I'm gonna take Tampa to win, but Carolina, I got my eye on you. So let's go to what could be, what maybe should have been the Sunday night primetime game. The Philadelphia Eagles coming to Baltimore to play the Ravens. I love your face right there. You're like, holy shit.
Holy shit is right.
This is a game. This is a fucking game. And again, part of me kind of want to talk the Ravens, but like we've talked them 3 times this year, so let's kind of like hold off on that. But Philly, man, coming in white hot into Baltimore. Who you got, my friend? I'm curious.
Give me Baltimore at home. I think Baltimore. I think they stomp out the flame that is Philly this week. It's gonna be a great game though.
Oh, this is going to be a fantastic game. I think this is going to be a ground and pound game. I mean,
Oh my God,
Jalen
it's
Hurts,
Saquon.
Lamar,
It's Saquon
Saquon
versus
against
Derrick Henry.
Henry. What a matchup, right? What a matchup. Again, maybe could have been they should have flexed this one, but I'm going to take the Ravens as well. I think that this is just going to be another game where this is going to be hero ball between both teams, where like
Someone's
both
gonna
teams
make
are
a
going to.
play.
I think that this one's going to be a very high scoring affair because our defense is pretty bad, but Philly they like to have close wins, and so
Yeah, no, we said it last week. They like to thug it out. It's just
they they
they
really
like to
do.
thug out wins, man.
They really do. So I'm gonna take the Ravens to win. But man, this is going to be a fantastic game, possible game of the week.
The tone in which you guys walk out of this game is what's gonna really set for next week.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, which brings us to our Sunday night primetime game, the 49ers and the Bills. I already said before, I don't think the 49ers are winning this. I'm taking the Bills. I'm guessing you are too, my friend.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bills as well. The Niners have a severe uphill climb with the world on them. It's like the Atlas Stone walking up the hill right now. It's just you have the world against you going into this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, but hey, let's hope that this is a really good game and a good football weather game too. Which brings us to our final game this week, and that is the Cleveland Browns playing the Denver Broncos. A very classic rivalry between these two back in the 80s, these two teams. But CP, who you got? You got Jameis Winston or Bo Nix?
I'm gonna go
You
with Bo
Bo
Nix, man. As much as I respect Jameis Winston and his passion for the game, I don't think passion and faith is gonna get him past the Denver team.
Well said. I'm with you. I'm going to take the Broncos as well. I mean, the Lord has blessed me for a wonderful day to play football in the snow.
And it blessed you
Uh,
with another one, and that's a beautiful thing. But they're a much better team.
Yeah, the Broncos are again a complimentary football team, and I'm glad Jameis Winston kind of found a stride in Cleveland a little bit, but the Broncos look very poised and look like the more disciplined team, look like the more well coached team, and there's a lot to be said about the Broncos, but I'm going to take them to beat the Browns.
Cool. Well, there you have it, guys. There's a lot. Our picks for the week. There's the two teams that we spoke about. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. There's still a couple of weeks left if you guys want to come on for an interview, whether it be for the rest of the regular season, postseason, even if it's not your team. Please reach out to John or myself, and we will schedule you guys for an interview. But until then, please, everybody, have a happy and a safe Thanksgiving. Please enjoy food, enjoy the time with your families. And until next week, when you can enjoy another week with us. Thanks, guys.